Nationally, the night before Thanksgiving, November 24th, is the busiest, largest evening for bar attendance. During the incident, the Cricket Club was no exception. Exact numbers have yet to be determined. However, information gleaned through the video footage and officer observations indicate that patrons in the Cricket Club were in excess of hundreds. The absolute horror, fear, and then anger generated by the shooting caused complete panic and chaos. Hundreds of patrons fled the area at once, causing panic and confusion as emergency crews and law enforcement was trying to respond. Ultimately, all area law enforcement on duty were called that night. Confusion initially for responding officers that we didn't even know we had. We have an active shooter? Was it a vendetta hit? Was the shooter still in the club? None of this was clear at first response. It was at 12:02 a.m. an altercation occurred inside the Cricket Club, which is at 34 West Michigan. On the second floor, establishment security intervened and the situation escalated into a large brawl. There's a video footage posted on social media by bar patrons captured this portion of the incident. During the brawl, a Cricket Club employee, Adam Yancer, working security by the front entrance, was allegedly assaulted. Knocked to the floor where multiple people continued the assault. In this fight, while prone to the ground, Yancer drew his fire hitting Xavier West. Battle Creek police officer was patrolling on foot in the area on State Street in Camlin. At approximately 12:05, the officer heard the shots coming from the interior of the Cricket Club. Immediately responded. He tried to enter the rear of the building, but was unable to get past the second interior door due to the massed people fleeing from the building. The officer observed the staircase leading to the upper level to clear the upstairs. Upon reaching that second level, he observed a large group of patrons standing near the opposite stairwell, and they were directing him back downstairs to where the victim was. West was surrounded by a group of people that were visibly upset. The officer pushed his way through to the crowd and saw West to be unresponsive. Officer Burke attempted to assess West. The officer immediately began to search for the wound, which was not evident due to the heavy clothing. Discovering a large amount of blood coming from West's chest, he immediately applied pressure to the area. He asked for paramedics and help from those in the crowd to move West outside so the paramedics could reach him through all the chaos. Burke continued to render aid to West, applying pressure to his wounds until the ambulance and crew arrived and they could ultimately transport him to the Bronson Hospital. Mr. West later succumbed to those injuries a short time later. Once the scene was safe and secure, officers interviewed a number of people, staff, and one of the establishment owners. Additionally, an employee of the Cricket Club, who was identified as the shooter, Adam Yancer, who was working in a security role, was detained. He gave a brief interview, then exercised his Miranda rights, which are routinely read before an interview where the person is the focus of that investigation. At the time of the interview, there was no indication that Mr. Yancer was under the influence of alcohol, therefore probable cause, no smell of alcohol, no observations, witness statements, or indications. They didn't exist, nor was a PBT utilized, nor was a search warrant able to be obtained. BCPD discussed the situation as we knew it with Calhoun County Prosecutor's Office. After reviewing the video you will be shown today before Mr. Yancer was released. A release in many cases where a clear charge request is not immediately evident is routine, unless there is substantial risk of flight, nor clear compelling evidence, or the belief there would be ongoing violence. Subjects are released until the case can be further investigated and sent to the prosecutor to review and authorize those charges. We do know this. Yancer was acting as a security employee for the Cricket Club, was employed by the Cricket Club, was authorized to carry a firearm by the club owner. Yancer was a registered CPL holder, and the current legal opinion is that he was authorized to carry in that environment. Evidence obtained so far is a 9mm handgun, legally registered and owned by Adam Yancer, was located at the property and seized as evidence. Additionally, 2,000 video files from 32 separate security cameras were obtained from the bar and are under review. Several videos that were posted on social media have also been secured as evidence. BCPD has approximately 20 subjects that they're currently scheduling interviews for and identifying additional witnesses. The cricket club owners, Jared and Joel Fulton, have been cooperating with us. On Thanksgiving Day, we did request help from citizens and patrons regarding the cricket club shooting. Again, we asked for assistance on the 30th. To date, we've received very little. At this point, I'd like to share 2 videos that we pulled from social media. Andy? We've got one more that shows it from another angle. Now that you've seen what we have, we're still reviewing video footage and actively interviewing witnesses. Here's the ask. Someone's died and justice deserves an answer. I can't and don't want to trust, this team doesn't want to trust just what we can plainly see. Xavier West, his family, they deserve our best effort. We're going to try and get there. But that means we need the help of the community and those first-person witnesses that were there and present in the room. So any compelling evidence, video or audio, or again, first-person witnesses that are willing to come forward, that would greatly support our current investigation. I'll put out 2 numbers now. One number is 269-966-3322. That is Department main line. We can be reached through that number, or Silent Observer, which is 269-710911, and again, 269-710911. And again, Xavier West is our victim in this incident. Our shooter's been identified as Adam Ganser. And what we're doing now is we're currently looking at any administrative LCC, any other violations that may have occurred. But as you can understand, our main effort is to determine what happened at those critical moments, and more importantly, what to do about it to follow. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm wondering, first off, could you identify yourself and your title? I mean,
Yes. Jim Blocker, B-L-O-C-K-E-R, Chief of Police.
okay, sorry. I should have known that.
Chief, were there security, or not security, but systems involved as far as winding everybody or checking everybody as they came in?
Yeah, from what we can see, there was a tertiary search being conducted. Matter of fact, I believe that was one of the roles that Adam Ganser played at the front door. And there were, we're seeing this through video, there were bouncers right at each of the entrances.
I mean, were they using, what kind of systems were they using?
I was not aware of anyone using any systems.
I mean,
No wands,
no wands or
metal
anything?
detectors, no.
Just kind of
search.
checking people?
That's right.
Have you uncovered any other weapons or any other weapons in that bar from that evening?
No.
Chief, my understanding was that under Michigan law, you can't carry a concealed weapon in a bar or tavern establishment, but my understanding is you said this was carried legally. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's right. Very similar to a church environment. If you're a registered owner, you have a registered CPO, right? And the owner, the establishment has given you permission to carry, and you're acting in that capacity, for example, as a security person, and then you can. That's one of the exceptions.
Okay,
Very similar exception is used in churches as well. If
gotcha.
leadership says you can carry, you can carry.
So the difference is if the bar owner says he can carry, he can't, but if he just decided to carry on his own, then that would be prohibited.
That's right.
And did the other security guards, were they armed?
We're not aware.
Mhm.
typically were. We're not making an assumption that they weren't, but we know that those that we have spoken to were not armed.
Okay.
You know,
Could you
security
talk, could you talk more about the assault of Adam Yancer? It was a little unclear, the details.
Well, it does appear that there was an altercation on the second floor, as I explained earlier. And security had moved up to the second floor to address that, and as they were escorting parties down to the base of the stairs, that's when there was an additional commotion. You can see at the base of those stairs, there's a limited visibility that we have, right? And then if you had seen in the one video, Adam Yancer is then directing his attention towards that one stairwell. And there is where the fight started to happen, at the base of those stairs.
And he was taken to the ground?
And he was taken to the ground.
Okay, and do you know if he's firing the shot while he's on the ground? I mean, can you talk more about that?
I can only tell you from what I can tell on the video itself, is that he was coming up as the shots were being fired.
Did he fire from behind his back?
You know, we took a look at that, and as of right now, we're not so sure that happened. It looked like it might have been from the waist, from the front.
Okay, and the victim was shot in the torso, back. Can you talk about
Yeah,
where those shots hit him?
2 shots right to the chest, torso area,
From the front, though.
from the front, that's right.
Do you know any idea of the distance between the victim and the?
You know, in looking at the distance, and this is an approximation, and we have folks that know that definitely, but I'd say 6 to 8 feet.
Okay, and was Mr. West going toward the security guard at the time? Do you know that circumstance?
Well, that's the challenge that we have with this case, and that's why we continue to ask for clear video. It does appear that there was a number of folks, at least 3 or 4, in a significant commotion, and that were actively aggressive at that moment. But what's not clear is who specifically was, and what was that event that precipitated the fight at the base of the stairs. And those are key critical moments that we just don't have right now.
So you're
that
still
we're
trying,
hoping to get.
I'm sorry, you're still trying to determine if West was attacking Lancer
That's right.
or Yancer?
Not just that West was attacking, but also what precipitated it.
And Mr. West was not armed, correct?
No, he was not correct.
Was the only weapon that, or the only weapon that Yancer had was his handgun? There was no taser or anything like that?
Not that we're aware of, just a handgun.
Can you break down kind of what are the elements you're looking for in order to kind of determine whether charges should be filed in this case?
You know, and again, we are working closely with our prosecutor's office, but what we're looking for is what you just saw gives us a general idea of what happened, right? But it doesn't get us to that level of specificity that we're looking for. Who was West aiming at, right? Who was the specific threat at the time? What precipitated the event and the fight in general? Right now, those are unanswered questions. And in many cases, and importantly, what did Adam Yancer feel at the time? We don't know. And so was he under threat? Did he feel that he was under threat? These are significant elements that we have to work to draw out as we try to build this case. But undoubtedly, this is a tough case for the community. I think it brings to attention really all of the controversial subjects that we have been trying to work through as a society, whether it's gun ownership, whether it's race, whether it's bias. And here's the thing, we're asking for more information. As I said, none of those things matter as much to me as the fact that someone has died. And if justice, we need to make every effort to ensure that justice is served appropriately. We owe that not just to the family and to the victim, but also this community. I think we've all worked too hard to get where we're at through the last certainly 18, 21 months, and I don't want to see this devolve into anything it certainly shouldn't.
Has Mr. Yancer spoken at all? I know he, decided to, stop talking at some point, but did you talk to him at all?
Very brief statement initially, and then he exercises Miranda rights.
Can
Did
you
he
talk
say-
about that brief statement?
Meant enough.
Did you say he feared for his life?
We think that's what he was saying, but we're not exactly sure. We're gonna need more than that.
Are there any plans to interview him in the future with his attorney?
We really do hope so. I mean, like I shared earlier, there's some key information that we need to see. We need to understand better what he said at the time.
Has he indicated when he wants to come back and talk?
No, he has not.
You talked about there were a lot of other videos from the bar system, did you say?
That's right. 32 different cameras.
Okay, and you reviewed,
We are reviewing over 2,000 files right now.
okay, have any of them that you've seen shed any new light on what happened?
No, not yet.
You said 2,000 files, all video files you made?
Yes, and so you can see what we saw, right? We know a number of people had their phones out. We know a lot of those phones, they had audio at the time. And that's really what we're asking for. We all have the experience, certainly in the world of cameras, is that sometimes a different angle or a different soundbite can make all the difference in the world. And that's really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to find that information. Some folks just might assume that we already have it, right? They might just be guessing that we've got the case, or more importantly, we've already made a decision. And I'm here to tell you we haven't made that decision, and we're asking for as much as we can.
Chief, was the initial problem upstairs, did that involve security at all? I mean, it was my understanding that maybe a couple of groups of people got into an argument or a fight or started throwing stuff, and that then security tried to intervene. Is that your understanding of the scenario?
That's exactly how we understood it. There was two opposing parties on the second floor. I believe some beer bottles were being thrown, or certainly glasses with beer back and forth, and that's when security responded. Security did respond, started to escort some of those folks down who they felt were the aggressors, and as they were walking down the stairs, that's when they were greeted by Adam, who was by the front door, supporting, checking people as they came in, and that's when the fight started.
Do you know if Mr. West was part of one of those aggressors you're talking about in those two parties?
We can only surmise that because he came down in that group, but no, that's not fully developed.
But the interaction by Mr. Yancer was only at the bottom of the stairs? I mean, that's where he got involved?
That's right.
So he wasn't part of the security people that were bringing them down the stairs?
No, if I didn't say it, I certainly wanted to, that he was assigned to the front door,
Right.
and that's where he came from.
Okay, and he was still at the front door when all the group was being escorted?
That's right.
There's a lot of anger out there, obviously, over this. Can you talk about, do you know if Mr. Yancer's received any threats, anything like that?
Yeah, I think there have been some, and I think to your point, there is a lot of anger, and there's a lot of frustration out there. And I think, importantly, we have to acknowledge it. I think we all do. When you take a firearm into a bar, right, you also take all of the responsibility with it. And I can't underestimate that point to this group, is that is a primary responsibility. Sanctity of life is at issue here, and that's the point, is we have to take as good a look at this as we can. I'm not so willing to just give up and say this was self-defense and walk away from this thing, and neither is our team. We're going to look at this as closely as we can. Yeah, it's violent. Yeah, it's not pleasant. There's nothing pleasant about it. But when someone dies, we owe them at least that. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's why I've asked for your help.
Chief, the other night, some members of the people that were at the vigil suggested that somehow this investigation or the incident itself was racially motivated. Is there any indication of anything like that?
How can you not think that in this era, right? When race is really a part of everything. I think we have to just recognize that's a very real part of it. And all we can continue to do is open up all lines of communication, be as open and transparent as we can about where we're at and what we have, which is exactly what we're doing right now, and saying that we're going to try and continue to give this the effort it deserves, and this is what we have to do. Let's keep trying. Let's just not give up. But sure, there's going to be those tones in just about everything, whether it's this incident or another. Our nation's in a we're trying to reconcile our past with our present, and it's not easy. It's always gonna be a tough discussion, but, you know, we're in it, and, again, I think we all deserve better, we all have to live here, and we are.
Have you been able to sit down with, Mr. West's family, I mean, like, before this press conference to explain where you're at? Have you shown them these videos?
What I have done is, you know, there's always that fine line between space, the space and expectations, and I'm a bit challenged to get in front of really a lot of folks, because I'm not so sure what I have yet. And I don't wanna get in front of somebody and say, I've got nothing to give you, right, except our best effort. Earlier today, I did meet with many of our community leaders, many members of our clergy, and I did just that. I talked to them about everything that we had and even a little bit more. And talked to them about the frustrations, our concerns. And I think that's helpful. I think it's helpful to be out there in front of it. And yes, certainly there were folks there that did represent the family, and certainly would carry that forward. But we have a little bit of work to do. We've got a little bit of work to do before we present to the prosecutor. But currently, we're still working through a lot of these details.
What's your expectation of when a report might go to Mr. Gilbert?
Our aim point's Friday. We would have liked to have been Monday, but we're just not there yet. And so, the same ask I put out today is the same ask I put out this morning. If there's more information, we will really take it. Even after this morning, a few more videos came in, so those are being reviewed. And we hope this produces something.
I'm sorry, you said you mentioned the goal is to present the findings to the prosecutor on Friday, right?
That's right.
Are there efforts made to get Mr. Yancer to come forward and speak before then?
You know, I know that our prosecutor is attempting to work with his defense attorney. But, you know, even under these conditions, it's gonna be Mr. Yancer that's gonna make that next call.
I'm sorry, how do you spell Adam Yancer's name?
His first one or his last one?
Both.
Which one?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Adam, A-D-A-M,
Mhm.
Yancer, Y-A-N-C-E-R. Is there anything else?
When people watch those videos and you have those to just show kind of reference, but what do you want somebody to look at, see, and, you know, like basically why are you showing these videos to us and for the
Yeah.
public to see?
Well, so the videos are out on social media, and I wanted to officially say, hey, we're looking at these too. This is what we have. Matter of fact, importantly, this is some of the best stuff we have. So if you have better, we'd like to see it. So don't assume we have better, right? The second thing that's really important is, it also shows what we don't have. And I want folks to recognize that base of the stairs, at that moment by that front door, just to the right of the front door, we don't have clarity in that back corner, the same kind of clarity that we'd like. And so if there's additional footage out there, and it's hard to believe that there might not be, right? But if we can get it.
So to
that'd
be
helpful.
clear, you haven't seen video that shows the actual gun being fired?
We do have video footage from inside the bar itself. And we do have video, just like this one. We show the weapon being fired. That's without a doubt. We know it was in his hands. We can see it being drawn. You can even see it being drawn here.
My eyes are getting kind of
Right.
bad, so.
Well, there's mine both, but if you slow it down, you can see it.
Yeah.
So that's not really at issue right now. It's really what happened prior.
He's acknowledged that he was a shooter, right?
That's right.
Do you know if it's standard protocol for the bar to have armed security guards, or is this kind of a special occasion?
You know, I wouldn't suggest, I don't know, I'm not in the bar business, but I certainly wouldn't have recommended it.
How much do you put on the bar owners for allowing that?
You know, that's a question that I can't really be too concerned with, but I will say this. If you're a bar owner, and it is the busiest night of the year, you do have a role and a responsibility. Matter of fact, I'm confident that the LCC even obligates you to operate your bar within the rules and the constraints that the law will allow. And there were exceptions that night. Certainly overcrowding is something we're looking at. So there's significant responsibility on the owners of
You said as far as you're aware, none of the other security guards were armed, right?
That's right.
Well, what you're saying is you don't know if any of them were armed, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, not aware, and we don't know. The ones we've interviewed that have acknowledged they weren't armed, we do know about those, but we don't know who was and who wasn't.
And you don't know the number of security people that were,
We do know, we have a rough number, we think there was 23 is the number that we were being told were hired for that night. I do not believe that Adam Yancer was a part of that number.
he was not a part of that number? What does that mean?
Meaning that he was not a part of the 23 security personnel hired for that night. Remember, as I shared earlier, Adam's an employee of the cricket club itself. He's not a member of this, he's not a security person, he wasn't brought in as a security person. He was an employee of the cricket club, but he was acting in a role as a security officer that night.
So the club had hired a security company?
That's what we understand.
Okay, but he was not part of the security company?
That's right.
He's a regular employee,
That's right.
is your understanding?
Working as security, in addition to security, in a security role.
Do you know if that was his normal role, security?
No, I don't believe that was his normal role.
Do you know what his normal role was?
No.
Like bouncer,
No, again, I have there's some details we have to work through, but I know that he's worked throughout the bar, but not necessarily always as security.
Any idea how long you'd been there?
I believe we've said 3 years, but I'm not sure. Anything else?
Those 23 security guards, were they hired just for that night, or do?
That's what we understand, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.